Greetings of the day. I'm Ganesh and I'm here with my teammate Priyadash, and this is our submission to Youth Data Hack. So, for this hackathon, we decided to go over some open data where we could look at what sort of trends we could find in them. So, in this case, we went with NYC Open Data, and through NYC Open Data, which is the data that is provided by the New York City's government, is basically a data set where we found the shootings that took place in New York City over the last 10 12 years. So, let's just go to our findings and then I'll walk you through the analysis. So yeah, to start with some L1 metrics, we found the boroughs in the New York City that had the highest number of shootings, and as you can see here, the borough of Brooklyn has the most amount of shootings at over 10,000 shootings, whereas compared to something like Staten Island, which is relatively small. But if you look at the number of shootings per area square feet, then this is something that's a different story. But yeah, moving on to the next metric, which is shootings over time on a monthly level, we can see that from 2006 to about 2013, the average number of shootings was around 175. Something happened in 2013 that dropped the shooting rates radically from 175 to about 125 to sometimes even an average of 100. But in 2017, we can see that there was a huge drop in the shootings, which was a period when there were very less shootings, and we can see that the average was around just 75 shootings for the period of 2017 to 2021. But as soon as we reach 2020 and 2021, the shootings skyrocket again. And some of the valleys that you can see here are basically the highest points of 2017. So this is very alarming. Next, coming to the points where we talk about the perpetrators' age group, we can see that the youth, which is the 18 to 24 age bracket, and the 25 to 44 age bracket, or the middle-aged man, are basically the majority of the people who are involved in the shootings. It is really alarming to also note that there are minors under the age of 18 who have committed more than 1,500 shootings. So there's some more graphs where we talk about who was the perpetrator, what was the perpetrator's gender, and what was the perpetrator's race versus what was the victim's age group and what was the victim's race. I think I'll just walk this through again in a table afterwards. So let's just wait for that. So the next thing that we looked at was shootings that resulted in murder, and as you can see, about 20% of the shootings generally result in murder. So, as I was talking about the race relation table a few moments ago, you can see here this is basically a group where we talk about the perpetrator's race versus the victim's race. And this is very useful in identifying if there are certain race groups who are more violent than the others. So, as you can see here, the black versus black crime is a very staggering number of 9,059 out of the total 12,275 shootings that we had here. This is really alarming considering the fact that but the black community is very violent towards the black community itself, and they have the most amount of shootings. Compared this to any other race, this is very noticeably higher. Then moving on to the age relation table, we can also see that the youth generally target the youth and the middle-aged men, as you can see over here with 2758 and 2294 numbers. And the middle-aged group also target the middle-aged group at the highest numbers at 3352. Now, moving on to some of the more element metrics again, we can see that the shootings by the time of the day, that the shootings in the night is almost thrice as much as the shootings in the day. Now, moving on to the days of the week, we can see that as soon as the weekend hits, which is basically the window between Friday and Monday, the shootings go up radically. Do note that the numbers for Monday are slightly inflated because anything after midnight of Sunday was being considered Monday in this case. So, some of the shootings that took place late in the night of Sunday have been accounted for in Monday. Otherwise, I think the trend between Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday and Thursday are relatively the same here. Moving on, we have some more data as to which precincts have the highest number of shootings. I think this is something to do with defunding the police that I heard from politics and all. But yeah, you can see certain precincts have a way higher shootings count compared to the other precincts. So this is something that could be really useful for the NYPD department. Now, moving on to the shootings by borough and the murder outcome. So, this is basically a ratio as to how many shootings happened and how many of them resulted in a murder versus not a murder. So, this is really useful in identifying what sort of guns are being generally used by people. And the shootings where the people did not get murdered can also be considered as something that those were in the lines of, let's say, self protection, let's say, self harm, or something like that. Now, moving on, we have some more metrics where we talk about the perpetrator's age group and the murder outcome, and we basically take the columnar relation between correlation between all of the columns so that we could try to establish some patterns here. So I'll just move on to some of the more interesting stuff that we have here. So one of the things that we did is we basically plotted the shootings that take place by area and tried to figure out which areas in New York City are relatively safer in terms of, let's say, shootings, in terms of other things compared to the rest. And as you can see here, a staggering amount of these precincts are colored in red. So these are the precincts where you can say the shooting numbers were highest in the range of 75 percentile and above. The blue ones are basically the regions where the shooting range was about 25th percentile to about 75th percentile, and in the green area it is basically less than 25 percentile and can be considered safe. Um, I'm not sure why the website could not render a GeoJSON file, but just to show you the interactability of the file, I'll just open up my VS Code here. And as you can see, this is very interactive. You can look at specific precincts, you can hover over and get to know about what sort of precincts are there. And you can see here there's a large group of precincts here which are contributing to a lot of shootings. So there might be something of a interesting note here that we could look at by maybe studying the population as well. So yeah, this was pretty much an analysis where we talked about New York City shootings. We were really dumbfounded when we saw the numbers and the community on community crime, just as the black community, when we saw that young people are getting more and more involved in the shootings. So I believe this is something that needs to be spoken out loud and basically communicated over. One of the other things that we did is basically all of our findings. I basically have a newsletter called Data Storytelling. We publish some of our findings over here as to what the shootings were like. You can check it out if you want. It is in the resources section of the dev post. So yeah, that was pretty much our submission for this hackathon. Kudos to Priyadarsh for making the website in such a short time. Thank you so much, everyone. See you.